In today's lesson, we'll be learning about the equation of a line with a focus on graphs. In a previous lesson, we learned that a linear relation is really just a pattern, and a pattern can be represented with an equation. Both of these equations mean exactly the same thing. Rate of change is the same thing as slope, and initial value is the same thing as the y-intercept. The slope of a line can be found by drawing a right triangle underneath that line. The height of that triangle would be the rise, and the base of that triangle would be the run. You can also find the slope of a line if you know the coordinates or address of 2 points on that same line. You would take y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. From this graph, we want to find the y-intercept and the slope of this green line. If you recall, the y-intercept is where your line intercepts the y-axis. That's why it's called the y-intercept. Therefore, the y-intercept would be 10. Before we find the slope of this line, take a look at its overall shape. Is it pointing upwards or is it pointing downwards? It most definitely is pointing upwards, which means it must have a positive slope. To find the slope of this line, we can draw a right triangle underneath this line. You can draw one here, you can draw one here, or you can draw one here. The point is, you can draw your triangle anywhere. I'm going to draw my triangle over here. The height of this triangle would be the rise, while the base of this triangle would be the run. The rise occurs between the numbers 10 and the numbers 50, which means the rise is 40. Meanwhile, the run occurs between the numbers 0 and 4, which means the run is equal to 4. When you figured out the rise, what you really did in your head was y2 minus y1. And when you figured out the run, what you really did in your head was x2 minus x1. We just figured out the rise was 40, and we just figured out the run was 4. Therefore, the slope is equal to 40 over 4, which is the same thing as 40 divided by 4, which is the same thing as 10. Therefore, the slope is equal to 10. Now, we want to check the reasonableness of our answer. Previously, we said that the slope had to be positive. And if you take a look at your slope, it is indeed positive. We just determined our slope to be 10, and from before, we found the y-intercept to be 10 as well. Therefore, the equation of this line is y equals 10x plus 10.